absolutely stunned to think that these marvellous sounds are being made in this building which I love and which I've worked in for so long. And when I hear Carlo playing it, you know, a great virtuoso, I mean, I just think that suddenly a new musical life has come to the church I could never have conceived of. On the lips, very soft. Now warmer now, and one. Now let it open up. The vision, yes, new. I came to Kingston 21 years ago, and I've taught at the school and worked in the church ever since then. I never ever thought that I'd turn my efforts to finding a new organ. I've seen choir boys come and choir boys go, and I've seen choir boys get choral scholarships, and always tried to work to this kind of standard to get the best out of them. It's good, yeah. I don't see any reason at all why we shouldn't aim for the best all the time. And we don't always get it, but we try. And when we came to look at the organ, I mean, exactly the same philosophy we thought should apply. Why compromise? Matthew Copley runs an organ construction firm in the neighbourhood. He maintained our old instrument, which was a very, very tender and loving task indeed, because it was a question of papering over all the cracks.
Oh, my goodness, what a dreadful mess. People's trousers to block up the leaks from the bellows.
Matthew had been warning us, I suppose, for about 10 years, that the electrics were failing and how the soundboards were warping and how the leathers were creaking and wheezing and all the rest of it.
A great deal of dirt and dust up here. And there's one here I know we had to... It was damaged last week, which I can put back in now. Lovely flute, a nice wooden flute here. Looks like a Victorian flute. The feet are buckled, I can see from here the feet are buckled. That of course, makes them speak very badly. I'm not surprised the organist is complaining the pipes speak very slowly. And the whole lot are in a most dreadful state. They're moving around, they're about to fall over. There's an extra machine put up here of more pipes up at the top. That is just simply because the organ's been made larger and larger over the years by adding lots of things. It's a complete mess. Poor old windbag.
Matthew's advice was unequivocal. He said, don't throw any more good money after bad. There's no point in further restoration. Turn your minds to buying a new one. Now in tempo here. There's two of them. Little round. Yeah. No, hold it. There must be a big registration change there. You know what I mean? Why didn't it happen?
I pushed the button and it just doesn't
Show
work.
me. Where?
It's sort of
nothing
from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going like this.
Far too late, far too slow.
Well, half of them come out. Yes.
This is too much, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's useless. Damn it. I'd heard of Frobenius, of course, a Danish organ builder. Most of his work was on the continent, But he built a few instruments in England and was in line to do St. Martin's in the Fields.
And welcome to Kingston Parish, Chair.
And Carlo Curley.
Great pleasure.
John Martin.
Indeed.
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed.
Well, we have a good journey.
Most people talk with reverential tone about Eric Frobenius. He's a very, very eminent organ builder and highly regarded by organists around the world. Matthew made a special case for him and said that this is the man you really want to get to build the thing. We tried others, we tried English organ builders, but none of them gave us the kind of answers we wanted, and we just simply thought we'll give this man a go.
Very, very pleased to meet you.
And Brian Lewis is the assistant organist.
And this is, of course, Carlo Curley, the largest organist in the world. Yes, indeed. I have a recording of your choir. It's marvelous. Nice to meet you.
Marvelous.
David.
Very good.
Indeed.
Very good.
Yes. David, I think you're the best person to explain to Eric, what it is that we've been thinking about and what we're now looking for.
Eric, you see the central altar there under the tower, which we've quite recently moved to that position, and you can see the old organ there, which is in fact very, very close to the altar, and we want really to try and move it to a position somewhere over here, where it's next to the choir, where it's in front of the congregation, and where it will free this space around the altar. Because actually, it's not a terribly good instrument. I mean, it was originally built by Willis, and it's been moved around the church and added to and altered and so forth. But maybe you'd like to hear it. Carlo, would you like to give it a turn?
Does it work?
It works.
A little feeling of the acoustics, that would be nice.
That's right, you can hear it.
It looks a bit like a coffin.
It's all yours, what there is of it.
Should I try? Okay, yes, I'm happy to. Lovely.
Part of the problem, you see, is it blocks this vista here. I mean, it's in a silly place altogether, really, isn't it? From every point of view.
It's like a steam engine. Here we go.
But you can't possibly do that with this vast, great bulk. And look how ugly it is, you see. You see, are you ready?
Right. Silence.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Before you give.
We're off.
Go on, give it a whirl.
We're off. Like a much-used bath sponge. Yeah, it's not a very fragrant piece of equipment, this, really. Eric, it's just, there's no possible communion between what these hands and feet, no matter of their size, are doing and what happens with the pipes. It's just like mush, real jelly.
What do you think?
I think you should build a new organ.
Is there anything in it which is worthwhile? I mean,
I cannot tell from that, but
We need to look at it.
You have said there is some. If they're old Willis pipes and so, we have to look at it and see if you can use them.
I was just thinking when I first visited Eric's organs over in Denmark some years ago that it was, every stop was such a beautiful picture itself, You could play on them all day, you're never tired.
Yeah.
Now, after 15 or 20 seconds of that sound, I mean, it's very nice and so forth, but I really wouldn't want to take it home with me.
the romantic stops, actually, are very, very useful to our kind of service in England. Is Eric going to be able to build?
Absolutely. I think he can absolutely do it. In fact, I don't even think, I know, because the concerts I've played and so forth and the closeness I've felt with his organs, you simply have to have one. It can be one of the finest organs in the world. There's no doubt. Right here in Kingston. Can you stand it?
Can we pay for it?
Well, no, that's your problem, Duck. That's not my problem. But no, so if you have it within your reach, you have to grab it.
We couldn't wait to get off to Denmark. There was a kind of intuitive compulsion to chase up this Frobenius business straight away. We looked round a few English Frobeniuses, and then, the impulse, so to speak, overtook us, and we simply couldn't wait to hear his instruments on the continent. Wagner, there was a wonderful instrument which obviously he'd built quite recently, and we heard this wonderful, huge sound, very powerful and really rather dominating instrument. Eric, of course, being a Danish organ builder, had always built in the classical tradition inherited from Germany. A strong instrument, very sort of complete in all its sections, and basically a solo instrument. But the question was, could it be discreet in the way that an English organ can when it needs to accompany a choir? The organ was terrific. I mean, it was a marvellous personality, but it didn't completely fit the bill. The great is terrific, I think. And the swell, well, you know, that's our particular problem at Kingston. In fact, I'd like to hear Brian. Brian, could you play for us on the swell from sort of soft, working your way up to loud, very quickly? And it's a question of how gradually, you see, how gradually this thing is...
To accompany the choir.
To accompany the choir, yeah.
Yes.
Let's just hear. That's nice, you know, that's good. Now, there must be no sudden bangs, you see? That's quite a sudden thing. It's very, very gradual terracing. And again, you know, and also, that it's very, very important that the trumpet blends into the chorus. Yeah. Brian, sorry, could you just give us... Could you just play us by itself on the trumpet? On the swell trumpet? Now, is that going to blend with the chorus, do you think?
David, we will voice it so it blends exactly. We will try with you and your choir, and we will not finish until you're satisfied. we have just said a little bit about that.
But also there is a very, very beautiful Krummhorn on this instrument, isn't
Yeah.
there?
Oh yes, the French one.
That we'd love.
He set his heart on that.
Brian,
He set his heart on that.
could you just give us the Krummhorn, please? This is beautiful.
That's wonderful, isn't it? It's a lovely sound.
Very fruity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we weren't too crestfallen at Wagner because we knew that what was going to happen, hopefully, was we would hear a whole repertoire of Frobenius styles of organ. And out of that, we would be able to explain to him the kind of thing that we wanted.
Yes.
The organ that Buxton would
Yes,
play.
don't turn around. Don't turn around before now.
Word.
That is really special.
Is that the
isn't it?
original case?
Yes,
That's absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
And any original pipe work?
yes, the 27 pipes in the Rückpositiv, the black ones. You can see
Oh,
the
yeah.
difference between these and the new
Yeah.
ones.
Yes.
They are from 1637.
It really is beautiful, isn't it?
It is
Splendid
indeed.
taste.
one.
And this is a very Frobenius instrument, isn't it?
It's very Frobenius in that way. I have voiced every pipe in it. That's in that way it is a Frobenius.
Yeah.
course. It's got
Very
beautiful
unforced.
silvery mixtures
Yes.
and very delicate
Yes.
fruits.
Lovely.
Yes, you like the mixture?
Very
Yes, the great
Yes.
mixture.
Yeah. What there is there is marvellous. You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
it would be regarded, I think, probably as limited for all sorts of other kind of work, but it plays Buxtehude beautifully, and of course it plays the classical repertoire beautifully.
It's a Buxtehude
It's a
organ.
very, very fine instrument.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a speciality instrument, I'd
Yes,
say.
a speciality. I mean, not necessarily. Every voice isn't what we would necessarily want at Kingston.
The first one was a very dominant instrument, not so good for us. The second one, Elsinore, was a very beautiful instrument, but classical and not versatile enough for us. And we wondered then, I suppose, whether we'd chosen the right man. And then we walked into Nesworth Church and saw and heard this beautiful, sympathetic instrument, which is so near the kind of thing we wanted. That's an absolute knockout.
Wonderful, isn't it? I mean, it really is.
I mean,
it's so silvery.
yeah,
It's
and
gleaming at us.
Bites, it's got personality.
Wonderful
It's terrific,
sound.
an absolutely
It really
terrific
is.
instrument.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear, dear. The church is a very important part of it, obviously. The building is a very important part. Everything is speaking at us. It's speaking as I am speaking to you. It's direct, it's clear, and it doesn't have to be forced.
No,
It's gentle.
Still?
And yet it's the most,
Well, there
wonderful.
must be a way of doing it. There must be a way of doing it, and that's exactly the thing we want.
It's wonderful. It really is. David hasn't got over it. This is the second time you've
Yes,
heard it.
no, I'm not going to.
It's wonderful. Oh, dear, oh, dear.
Marvellous. You'll have to be careful, otherwise tears will start running down my cheek.
Yes, well, good. That's wonderful. That's wonderful, because that's what it's all about, isn't it?
The thing that's exercises me most of all, as you might imagine, is what is the justification for spending a sum of money like this, £200,000, on a musical instrument in one church? This is a church in which artistic quality plays a very, very large part in the nature of its worship. I mean, there's no reason why that shouldn't be the case. I enjoy the stained glass windows. I think, you know, they give me a lot of power in worship. Often look at them when just about to conduct something. And, I mean, they were obviously put there by somebody with vision who said, I think, you know, this is going to be a tremendous asset. Not only, of course, to themselves, but to generations, centuries. I mean, that's the case we're talking about now, I think. And I just can't see a way of accepting second best.
May I make some points? Because there's one very deep thing that's bothering me on this, and that is the man in the street actually picks up that the Church of England in Kingston is actually about money. And this frightens me, because we're not called to be here about money. We're actually called to be here about the gospel of Christ and reaching out to those around us. Now, here at St. John's, we're very keen to actually reach out to those who, frankly, won't want to come to an organ recital or a concert or anything like that. They want to go somewhere where they can lose the kids for an hour. And it just seems to me that I have to ask this question. What is the church to be? You know, is it about towers and organs, or is it about reaching out to those around and saying, come on, you know, we're actually wanting to make a contact with you where you are?
I think what worries me about it, apart from the question of whether we should be spending that much on the organ, is how far is it going to monopolise the time and energies of the church while we are fundraising? I mean, I'm not very hot on maths, but I think it's going to come to something like £2,000 a week. Now, this is a horrifying amount to think that we've got to try and raise. Can we actually do it and keep going as a church meanwhile?
I suppose the first question is, can we raise the money? I share with David the conviction that we can raise it, that it will be raised. Should we be raising money for this project or for some other project? Again, well, like David, I don't see any conflict between the two. It seems to me this project is on our agenda. We haven't chosen to put it on our agenda. The old organ is collapsing. I'm prepared to say God has put it on our agenda. So we have to respond to what I see as a divine challenge. For me, the important thing is that we are now going to try, or perhaps we're going to try, to do something really big, really sacrificial, something in which we shall have to put every effort for God and for his worship. And I would hope that the man in the street could, read our action in that way. That these people think that the worship of the church is so important, they're prepared to spend, £250,000 on it. That will shock the man in the street, I've no doubt, but I think the man in the street perhaps needs to be shocked. Because our first responsibility is to worship God with everything that we can give him. And if one of the things we can give him is this wonderful organ, then we should. That's how I see it.
When the church finally agreed to sign the contract with Eric, I felt we'd overcome a major hurdle. We'd committed ourselves, and that's what mattered. The price was about £200,000 to be paid in installments in Danish kroner. It didn't occur to me to worry about the money. I suppose I'm just an eternal optimist. I thought to myself, there's plenty of money in Kingston, and they'll be enthusiastic to give it to a thing like this. Everybody. Well, there you are, Eric. I hope that gives you some sort of idea of what's going on here, and of the use of the organ as, obviously, as basically an accompanying instrument in the Anglican Church service.
David, first of all, it was heavenly. Really.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
You enjoyed it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And all the time, you see, the sound is fluctuating, you know, the organ is getting louder, softer, always discreet.
The swell has to be very, very effective and good.
That's right. I mean, we're not any longer talking about, you know, the tremendous force of, a solo instrument, but something...
And a beautiful bass.
Yeah.
Beautiful
yes.
bass is very important.
Yeah.
As I understand it, the organ would stand out to here, back to approximately here. It would come back in a solid block, all the way back, somewhere to here.
It would have a sort of gangway behind it, would it?
Gangway behind, and it's going to screen that window.
That window, yes.
It's going to come up to somewhere near this door. And, of course, this pillar is going to be right in front of it.
Yeah, and we're going to get this sort of vista which we've been talking about so far that...
Well, yes, I suppose you will get that, because you have to imagine those organ pipes
That's
gone,
right, they've
so
all
you
gone.
get a better view through there.
This church is not built to house an organ. I mean, no place can you find which is actually obviously perfect for an organ. They've tried 3 or 4 times with the present instrument to find exactly the right situation for it, and there isn't a perfect one.
I don't agree.
Well, why?
I don't agree at all. I think it ought to be there, in the west end, rising from the floor up to the windows.
It's
a lovely glass case.
No, it's absolutely no use whatsoever, Matthew, I'm sorry. It's vital that you have the organ and then the choir.
Together.
And then the congregation.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't have the congregation in between the organ and the choir. If the choir is going to be over here, where the altar is, then the organ cannot be down at the west end.
Well, I think you chaps have got to sort your priorities out, frankly. And what are the priorities? There's a musical priority. Now, you have strong views on that.
There is the musical priority.
The musical. And there's a liturgical priority.
Right.
And there's an architectural priority.
Yes.
And there's also a priority to display a very expensive instrument in a satisfactory manner.
Yes.
Now, as far as I'm concerned, the last 2 priorities I've mentioned almost don't get a look in on this conversation. You've not considered this thing architecturally, and I don't think you're doing justice to the organ, because putting the organ behind an arcade is not the best way of displaying the organ.
No, of course not. And we knew that from the start.
In fact,
This is the reason why we're not paying for an expensive case with sort of elaboration and so forth.
First of all, we're not in the business of having perfect architecture.
The arguments about the position of the thing went on and on relentlessly. But I suppose antagonism was inevitable when you consider the tremendous expertise of the people involved. And they held their different views passionately.
And which will also be usable for concerts and other purposes.
Thanks.
These are the figures of all monies received until the day before yesterday.
It's obviously slowed down quite a lot in that case recently, hasn't it?
Yes, the amounts, there are quite a lot of amounts, but they're not,
No.
on the whole, very big amounts.
No, you're telling me. Look at some of these here. What have we got? Boots Charitable Trust down at the bottom here, £75. Is that the kind of figure we'd expect from the town at the moment? That won't give us very much of an organ, will it?
No, but on the other hand, I can feel for them. I had a very nice letter in which the administrator explained that they have so many requests for help. Consequently, you know, with the best will in the world, they just can't give more.
And what's this £5 from Lloyd's Bank Kingston? That really is going to take us towards our goal.
Just a minute. Who's Lady Grantchester?
Well, she's the chairman of Kingston Arts Council.
President.
Oh, I beg your pardon, President.
Is she good for a few more?
I wouldn't have thought so.
You don't
I think that this is a very good donation.
You know, it seems to me what we need now is a really good thumping donation or 2 to get us on the way,
You have an idea.
encourage us. Well, somebody like, wouldn't it be lovely, Paul Getty?
Well, there we
or
are. Let's write to Paul Getty.
The Gulbenkian Foundation.
Let's write to the Gulbenkian
something
Foundation.
like that.
Yeah, write to them all. Rosalie, have you got a moment or 2? Yes. We must do some letters for the organ. Appeal. Dear Mr. Getty, forgive me writing this letter without introduction. As the organist of Kingston Parish Church, I am hoping to raise £205,000 for a new instrument built by the international builder, Danish builder, Erik Frobenius.
It was alarming to think that I had no skill really, nor had many of the rest of us in money raising. We knew about music, we knew about teaching, and we presented whatever we could of those abilities to raise money. The money started well, and that gave us enormous confidence. But after that, when we had to roll our sleeves up and graft away and chip it out of people's pockets little by little, then it was very slow. We need the bang next, don't we, actually? And that's this concert which is coming up.
We need a big bang, yes.
Yeah. The format, I thought, was that we would have 45... The big bang we had in mind was a high-profile concert which would take our appeal to the public. The whole sort of audience and everybody to come into the East End, and we'd have a reception there and a speech from Richard Baker and all this kind of stuff. And it needs to have impact. It needs to be a big occasion. It needs to have flair, and it needs to get the thing cracking. It needs more than anything else, somebody in the town to stand up and wave a £5,000 check in our faces and say, that's the way it goes, that's the sort of level we're thinking at.
Likewise.
That's right. Absolutely, yeah. So we've got to find somebody. Have we so many tickets?
So far, I've only had 26 acceptances from those 106 I sent out.
How very Kingstonian. Is that the best they can do, do you think? What's gone wrong? Maybe the Chamber of Commerce haven't heard of Richard Baker. That's quite a possibility. The opening concert was designed to fill the church with musical enthusiasts and with the businessmen of Kingston who would wave their checkbooks around. Well, we got all the musical enthusiasts, but we didn't get very many checkbooks. I think we made about £300 altogether. I concluded rather miserably that Kingston wasn't really interested in anything it had to pay for. We had a meeting last month with Eric, actually in this church. And we got round to the vexed question of where this 32-foot thing should go, for which the pipes still are not inside the case. And they're higgledy-piggledy all over the place. And he came up with a suggestion that we should dispense with that rank of pipes altogether and instead have electronic speakers. And I know from conversations that I've had over the phone that you, at least, Matthew, object quite strongly to electronic speakers.
Very strongly, yes.
Could you say why?
Well, namely, I don't believe you can possibly build a fine pipe organ and then start including electronics in it. That's absolutely out. I think we shouldn't even consider it.
Can I just come in at that minute? Because to be fair to Eric, he has a huge problem in terms of trying to fit in what you're crying, a massive set of pipes. There are other ways of killing the cat, and I'd like to be able to go back to him and argue your case. I think it's a very sound one. I think there are other ways of doing it.
Is there time?
Oh, of course there's time, yes, because we don't actually start doing that part of it until after some of the drawings are done. We've got to start drawings 1 fortnight from now.
Let's leave that to... Does that satisfy?
Yes, OK, that's fine. Well, while we're on objections, I'd like just to register one other, and it's really the most important objection of all. I felt from the very start, you know my feelings on the subject, and Hugh does too, that I really do believe we're missing a golden opportunity of putting the organ not in the right place. We're putting it in an aisle, a northern aisle. It should be at the West End. The organ should be nowhere else but the West End, Hugh. It should be there. It would be aesthetic in every way. It would be musically better. It would be far, far finer to look at.
Well, you know,
well, I know
I would agree with you. I would agree with you as a musician, but as a liturgist, I just can't agree. We've got to go over that one now. I mean, we have actually done that point many, many times over. We were now in a fairly sort of moribund period, and fundraising was difficult. After all the initial enthusiasm, obviously, there comes a rather lean time, and that coincided, most unfortunately, with appalling news about the exchange rate. Yeah, that's right. 10.5 kroner to the pound, is that right now?
Yes, that's an all-time low.
Is it really? It must be lower than it was some 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yes, then it was just 11 dead, and now it's dropped down to 10.5.
What does that make for fun, then? What difference does it make?
Well, it means the contract now has gone up the worst to 247,000, as opposed to 190,000 when we signed.
45,000?
Well,
more?
that's 57,000. It had just disappeared up in smoke somewhere.
£57,000. Now, how long is it, in fact, Freddie, before we have to pay any money over at all?
Well, fortunately, we've got time. We don't have to pay any more until next November when the fee starts work. And in between then and now, of course, all sorts of things can happen.
Like what?
General election or general election fever, behaviour of oil prices, all that sort of thing affects the exchange rate. And
have we any idea from our sort of pundits whether it will go down?
Yes, we have to
do it. This bird, I haven't got that kind of waist there.
Oh, charming!
If you want to keep the money coming in, you have to stay in the public eye.
Right. Where's your beats? Down with that, you know, it's long.
No one would suspect John.
It's a bit bigger than last night.
What you've been drinking.
I'll tell you something, they looked at me very askance in the pub. They were very loath to give me a pint of beer. Gin and tonic several times over, but they wouldn't give me a pint of beer.
It's not fair. Why am I left behind? Who's that? Cinderella, if you want to go to the ball, you shall go to the ball.
I remember one choir member proposed a sponsored parachute jump, but dropped the idea because he couldn't raise the money for parachute lessons. But every so often, amongst the grind, we get the chance to make real money. Thames Television offered us a half hour of carols at what seemed like a phenomenal rate. Considering it was just one day's work, we did jolly well out of this, I can tell you. Much better than we did from the BBC.
Not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. I'd do it again. It all went in the organ fund. Yeah, well, that's £3,500. It knocked the old total up in one quick day, it did. Throughout, the businesses of Kingston kept their purses firmly shut, with a few notable exceptions.
All the money is collected because we're going to charge the parents, families, friends and relations.
But bit by bit, we began to understand that there had to be something in it for them.
So all that money goes to you, and then we top it up at the end so you get £6,000
So whatever happens...
So whatever happens, you get a cheque for £6,000.
Do you think it might be any more?
It could be a lot more, actually. It could be 6, 8, 10.
This is a slightly more sophisticated means of advertising, presumably, than just putting an ad in the Parish magazine, is it? Is that...
Well, that's right. I mean, we're a local funeral director, but we feel that we should have some involvement in local affairs. And
Yeah.
I mean, the organ is a super idea from our point of view.
Yeah. Because it's a sort of... It's something to do with churches and therefore your line of business
Well, yes, there is that angle, but I think more importantly, I think the other angle is that we like to be seen to be helping Kingston improve its image, if you like, because I think the church organ, because of its what it is and where it's coming from, it's very enhanced.
When you're grinding away at long-term fundraising, it's easy to lose inspiration. But coming back to the church and to the choir, 2 or 3 times a week, constantly reinforced the point of it all. After all, it was this choir and this long musical tradition which gave us the confidence to start the whole caper in the first place. Now you think you can have an ice cream, you think the next bit nice. Only one go at it.
Some way.
Oh, but that would add to the price.
I know all these snags about oak. You know, I've worked with oak quite frequently, but still, that's a ridiculous price in my view.
Well,
there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, there isn't really.
No.
I mean, he then goes on to talk about mahogany, which he said he would do for exactly the same price.
Yes.
The next thing is this eternally vexed question of this 32-foot stop, which has been outside the box and which has been electronic and God knows what. The latest thing is for a thing called a quint, and he says this is will go inside the box. It's going to be a lot cheaper. It's going to be £6,000 cheaper. If that's going to do the job of the 32-foot, why didn't he suggest it in the first place?
Because it doesn't do the job of the 32. Not properly. The 32 is a warm... It's a set of pipes which makes the deepest sound in the whole organ and makes the entire church just vibrate very, very gently, makes your stomach move slightly. You're just aware of something marvellous happening, you see.
A cheaper way of doing that.
It's an expensive draft. It's called an expensive draft, and you can use it with with hardly any other organ or full organ, and it's just as effective.
And in what respect then is the quint inadequate to that?
It just doesn't make the air move so much, and therefore has far less effect. But it certainly is a compromise, and it's obvious. I can see we're not going to be able to get these pipes in.
Is it a good compromise? Is it a Frobenius quality compromise kind of thing?
Well, it's the only compromise you can have. You can't. There is no other way.
Will it
Certainly, it's better than electronic.
Will it give warmth?
Yes.
Right, C sharp. Right, D. D sharp.
This is the biggie.
This is bottom C.
This is the very biggest.
Bottom C of the Viennese.
Yeah.
That's it. You won't be able to play it this Sunday.
No, you're only going to play it again.
F. F sharp.
God, there's something very pipe sugar love for God. His name. What pipe do you call that? Violone sucre.
Yes, that's right. Sweeten the tone. Careful, Stuart. Okay. All right, John?
They're getting quite awkward now. They come around the corner. These are very soft.
Delicate. Yes, these are delicate. These are the original pipes. Start at bottom G.
This is Willis, is it?
That's right, yes. B sharp A. And that's a very delicate pipe. But this must have been lovely when it was first built in 1867 or something?
70, that kind of thing, yeah.
It was a wonderful organ. The church would have saved a lot of money if they'd not touched it, left it alone.
No going back on it, Matthew. Yeah, it's gone.
That's it.
There's a hole.
Reached the point of
Just
no
a hole.
return. Yes, I know. Isn't that bare, desolate?
Time we've clapped eyes on this thing, you know, even if it's inside a cargo holder.
When the lorry came to Kingston and round the corner there with this massive sign on the outside saying Frobenius, I felt so joyful to have assisted in giving Kingston something special and something of lasting quality. I mean, I've lived here a long time now, and some people who are fond of Kingston become councillors. I'm fond of Kingston, and here's an organ for them.
No, this is the key
Listed.
action.
The key action.
Part of the key action.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do they want any help?
You can see roller boards and so on.
The roll, yeah.
To the side.
Yeah.
Those are your side keyboards.
Yeah.
The keyboard.
Which way? That back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. It took the whole day to unload the thousands of pieces, and it was 4 months before it was all assembled. I thought to myself, I reckon I, along with a few others of course, have added something now to Kingston. Well, I'm sure, gentlemen, it's ladies, it's Frobenius.
Frobenius?
Yeah, Mr. Frobenius. He's back in Denmark at the moment, having lunch, I suppose, isn't he? It's massive. vast in the pleasure of it all. Fresh, horrific news came from Denmark. They totted up the inflation clause in the contract, and we owed a further £50,000. It was utterly unexpected, a real thump in the stomach. We've got to pay an awful lot of money still for this thing, and it's quite difficult now. I'd love to go down to the church and play it and get huge pleasure, but I mean, on the other side of that coin is the 80,000, 90,000, which we still have to find for it.
O holy and eternal God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, adored and lauded by all the companies of heaven, graciously receive from us this organ which we dedicate to your glory. In the faith of Jesus Christ, for the benefit of his holy church and all who come to listen, we offer and dedicate this organ to Almighty God, whose name be honored, praised, and glorified now and forevermore. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen.
Never, ever a good moment, actually, that octave leap, and you don't actually help either. Where have you been this time? Why is it every single practice you're late like this?
I'm sorry, I haven't really got an excuse.
Go from the previous bar, please. 16. Okay, let's do it again. It's a bit tight at the top.
Rosie! Rosie and Jim, chugging along on the old rag doll. Rosie and Jim, and John, he steers the boat. We go to play and have a look with Rosie's bag, Jim's drawing book, the world drifts by, the window frame, and Rosie and Jim, we play our games. Rosie and Jim, finding stories every day. Rosie and Jim, and John, he writes them down.
Hello, I'm John. You saw me steering the boat earlier on, but that's not my real work. My real work is writing books, and they're books for children just like you. I'm making a new one just now. It's all about Rosie and Jim. They're my two rag dolls that I have on the boat. I like to pretend that they come to life. And I get ideas for the stories about them from the things I see as I travel on my boat. What shall I put in my story today? Well, it's a sunny day, so I'll start with that. One sunny day. And then I'll draw the river with my two blue pens, like this. And my boat is just here. So I'll put this picture of it on the book to show the place. And now I'll be on my way. I'll chuck it on. Well, today I want to go and explore the town of Tewkesbury. I'm sure I'll get some good ideas for stories there. If I go along this way, I'll soon be there. So I'll get started up and cast off.
Thanks, Doc. We're moving, Rosie.
Where are we going to, Jim?
My goodness, there's a lot of traffic up there. Cars and buses and lorries. You know, sometimes it's so noisy that it gives me a headache.
Rosie, what did Big Dog say? Rosie!
You know, I feel like going somewhere really quiet and sitting down and having a good think. It isn't very quiet.